Exactly. It'll have its own onboard power available at that point, and the real critical moment is at 31 seconds, and that's the transition to the onboard.
Rocket booster joint heaters now being deactivated.
At 31 seconds, the ground launch sequencer goes into auto sequence. As you see the crowd gathering here beneath the countdown clock, the flags limp, the weather perfect, the shuttle apparently the same. Let's listen to NASA's George Diller and the radio calls
booster flight data recorders
between
activated.
Mission Control, Launch Control, and the Space Shuttle Discovery.
Standing by for the handoff to Discovery's computers. T-minus 31 seconds. The handoff has occurred. Discovery's computers now controlling.
$25.
Firing chain is armed.
20.
Sound suppressor water system is being activated.
15.
Brain safety systems armed. T-minus 10 seconds. Go for main engine start. 7, 6, 5. 3 engines up and burning. 3, 2, 1. And liftoff of Space Shuttle Discovery, beginning America's new journey to the moon, Mars, and beyond. And the vehicle has cleared the tower.
The Space Shuttle Discovery on its way. This is a critical period of time, 8.5 minutes of, a lot of violence, you might say, to get them to space. What's it like now on board there?
Right now they're feeling a lot of shaking on board the flight deck. They're about to go supersonic, and you'll hear the call to throttle down, which is when they're going through max aerodynamic pressure. And you'll hear the vehicle, and behind us it's just roaring inside the solid rocket boosters, and you can feel that on board the shuttle inside. And you can see on the outside of the vehicle, the shocks are forming right now as they're going supersonic.
Those are actually called shock collars, and that occurs. It basically makes the water vapor condense as it goes through at supersonic speeds, right?
Exactly. In fact, they're forming the shots. They're continuing to accelerate until we'll hit about 5 times the speed of sound about 2 minutes when we kick off the solid rocket boosters.
Discovery, Houston, go at throttle up. Discovery, go with throttle.
Sounds like Eileen is getting.
For Discovery, altitude now 9 miles.
Eileen is getting rattled around a little bit there as we hear the famous go with throttle up call.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, they're go at throttle up, and here for about another less than a minute, we're going to have the solid rocket boosters kick off. And
that's a key point. We should point out that once you light those solid rocket boosters, there's no turning them off. And that first couple of minutes is very critical because there aren't many onboard scenarios that work in that situation. There are none.
Exactly. In fact, we're pretty much along for the ride for that first 2 minutes and 17 seconds on the solid rocket boosters. Everything happens pretty quick after that for the next 6.5 minutes on the 3 main engines as we continue to accelerate uphill, as they will today, until you hit orbital velocity here at 8.5 minutes at 17,500 miles an hour.
Right at 2 minutes, we should see those solid rocket boosters drop off. You'll see a little flare. Off they go, like tossing a couple of cigarettes out of a fast-moving car.
Booster officer confirms.
And that's a good moment. You do.
Absolutely.
We used to all breathe a sigh of relief at that moment because, of course, we thought of Challenger.
Speed now 3,030 miles per hour. Altitude 33 miles. 40 miles.
Not bad.
Downrange.
40 miles of altitude in 2.5 minutes. That's not bad. I'd say that's a decent performance. But nevertheless, there's still a lot of peril here because you've got another 6 minutes of powered flight. What's going on now?
Right now, everything is smoothed out on the flight deck. So all the vibration that they had on the solid rocket boosters has now gone away, and they're now waiting for the next calls, which will be a negative return call, which means they're through the RTLS capability.
2 engines, Zaragoza.
Now they're picking up the 2-engine TAL calls.
Which means you lose 2 engines, you can make it to Spain.
If
right?
you lose 1 engine, you can make it on the 2 remaining engines to Spain.
Okay.
All systems in good condition. Altitude now 254,000 feet, or about 48 miles. Discovery speed 4,500 miles per hour. 85 miles northeast of the Kennedy Space Center.
You're listening to the voice of James Hartsfield, who is in Houston at Public Affairs officer there, sitting in Mission Control. The same man who brought time for engineers to make sure they don't see debris, but it's an awful lot of fun for us to kind of go along for the ride, isn't it?
Absolutely. You're looking from the top of the tank down the belly of the orbiter, and they're sticking out of the right side, or the left side as you're looking at it, is the right wing of the orbiter Discovery. And you can see the edge of the Earth in the background there.
Back down to the ground here, the flag still flapping ever so nicely, and
altitude now,
about 3 minutes or so into the mission. Where are we on the potential abort scenarios now?
Right now still in the two-engine.
They put the astronaut pin on a little later, right?
When they come home, yeah, there'll be a ceremony for that.
Look at this great picture here as we see the sun shining on the belly of Discovery there. And like we said, this camera was put in direct response to the debris strike which occurred in Columbia, but gives us a wonderful sense of where they are. You see the Earth beneath as they make their way into space. I didn't get the altitude call just a moment ago, but they've gone a long way in a short period of time.
And single engine Zaragoza 104.
Federico and single engine Zaragoza 104.
Those calls that Discovery could reach its planned orbit on only 2 engines if needed. All 3 continue to operate well at full throttle. Just under 2 minutes to cut off of the main engines now.
Discovery Houston, we see a nominal shutdown plan. You will be go for the plus X and go for the pitch maneuver.
All right, translate that for us, plus X and the pitch maneuver.
And what they're going to do is when they release the tank, one of the things they want to do is get photographs of the tank on orbit. So they'll do a pitch maneuver, they'll plus X away, and then basically shove themselves forward from the tank, pitch up, and then they'll take photographs from the shuttle.
There's a pretty good chance we're going to see that, right? Is that possible, or will that camera still be recording at that point?
At that point, we may lose the signal, but we're getting a great signal right now of the vehicle in the roll. The heads up, you can see the Earth's limb in the background back there.
That was the heads-up roll, because what they do is most of the ascent, they're kind of, you might call it upside down, but it doesn't feel like that, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you're in your seat, so you don't really feel the sensation of being upside down. But you can certainly see it out the windows and on the instrumentation inside the cockpit.
The engines are now beginning to throttle back to prevent the spacecraft from experiencing
you
forces
see
in excess.
Launch Pad 39B. The only thing more pretty to NASA than a shuttle on the pad is that site, an empty launch pad 2.5 years later, and what appears to be a flawless ascent to orbit.
700 miles northeast of the Kennedy Space Center. 30 seconds to cut off of the main engines.
And as we say, that cutoff of the main engine, 8 minutes and 30 seconds in, which gets them into space and gets them on their way. That was the moment when astronauts used to breathe a sigh of relief. Columbia taught us something different, didn't it?
Exactly, and that you can never relax your guard on this endeavor, because we have very close margins.
Well, it's interesting, if you think about all the force we just witnessed and felt here, and our bones were rattling. I don't know if it's not something that comes across well on television, that sense of raw power. But that power has to be dissipated somehow, and that's what re-entry is, after all, dissipation of that power. So you can understand the tremendous heat that is involved in all of that.
By now for jettison of the external fuel tank.
I think we're going to see this live, which is extraordinary.
They've just gone through main engine cutoff, so the main engines have now shut down. Those guys are in zero G.
Look at that.
There
goes
the tank.
Discovery and the tank. Part their ways. The tank will make its
Live
way.
television as Discovery jettisons its
That's
external
spectacular.
fuel tank.
The tank will be.
All normal with the cutoff of Discovery's main
you can
engines.
see
the jets firing.
The jets firing to do just what we saw there.
Ensure clean separation from the tank.
We have a good plus-X maneuver.
Copy the
They'll
good
pitch
plus
over
X.
now and look
We
back
saw
at the
a
tank and take
nominal
some photographs.
One is not required.
And that's a great call. That OMS one not required indicates they're in a good orbit and a good circular orbit.
He's talking about the orbital maneuvering system, which are rockets that do significant changes in your orbit. And if you don't need to use it, that means that you've had a great launch, essentially. And that's good news. Seeing that separation, that was spectacular. That was something.
It's the first time we've ever seen that.
Yeah, we didn't expect we would have that live capability all the way there. But the external fuel tank now makes its way toward a controlled entry into the Indian Ocean. It breaks up. Most of it burns up. Little tiny pieces fall into the Indian Ocean. It's the only significant piece of the shuttle that is not reused. Those solid rocket boosters that you saw that came off 2 minutes in, they have parachutes attached. They go into the ocean. They're fished out by some boats that bring them back. It takes a little while to get them back, but they're ultimately reconditioned, restacked, and reused. Well, spectacular launch. Jim Riley, you did a good job, and we are not done here. We're going to come back in just a little bit, and we're going to resume our conversation about NASA, about this mission. We'll take another look at that spectacular launch. Look at them. They're putting their coats on and saying, all in a day's work here at the Launch Control Center and the firing room here at the Kennedy Space Center. Back with more special coverage in just a moment.
3, 2, 1... and liftoff of Space Shuttle Discovery, beginning America's new journey to the moon, Mars, and beyond. And the vehicle has cleared the tower.
Engines now controlling.